Hour number 2. We're going to take a look this hour with a gentleman who, I may be mistaken, but I think he may have made one of his very first radio appearances here years and years and years ago, and has stayed the course, trying to serve mankind, womankind, humankind with the truth and to give adequate warning. He is an extraordinary man. I consider him a friend. He has been making the rounds lately of a lot of big-time talk shows, but he's back with us tonight. We kind of consider him family here. He is Lindsey Williams. Pastor Lindsey Williams, of course, has an extraordinary story to tell, as always, and we're very glad to have him back on the program tonight. Hello, Lindsey.
Jeff, you are exactly right. I had never thought about that. It was on your show that I had my debut. Many, many years ago, you allowed me to be on your show before, and you said he's been on all the big shows. No, Jeff Rense show is a big show, too. And likewise, I consider you to be a friend, but Jeff, tonight is so different than any time I've ever been with you. I am so appreciative, and I consider it a privilege that you would allow me to be here to tell the real story of the Gulf of Mexico oil disaster. Jeff, I had the privilege of being on with you a few weeks ago, and I still had not contacted any of my elitist friends. I tried to get in touch with them. I could not.
Right.
As many of you know, the mainstream crisis to Washington State for some cancer therapy, and I had not been able to get in touch with any of them. Well, I have. I contacted my elitist friends, a retired Atlantic Richfield executive, along with, he put me in touch with 2 BP managers. Jeff, they are so concerned. They wanted to say everything they could, and they did. They confided in me things that you're going to hear tonight. Then I contacted a Halliburton worker who was actually on the rig just a matter of hours before it blew up. And, Jeff, every one of them, even though they didn't know each other, the Atlantic Richfield executive, the BP managers, the Halliburton worker, none of them, and every one of them told the identical same story. Of course, from my elitist friend alone, I would have been willing to believe anything you said.
Sure.
But when every one of them told the same story, Jeff, this story is one that I considered a privilege that you would allow me to be here tonight to tell.
Well, I wouldn't have it any other way. I'm glad you're here. By the way, just as a prelude to what Lindsey is about to bring us, the BP death clouds are already on shore. Benzene, which has a so-called safe level of 0 to 4 parts per billion, 0 to 4 parts per billion, is being measured at 3,400 parts per billion. Think of the little babies. Think of the invalids. Think of people who are not in good health. Think of anyone. Benzene is a deadly carcinogen in the air all over the Gulf region now at 3,400 parts per billion, and it's not going away. We're talking about the potential here of mass panic at some point. But please, Lindsey, go right ahead with your story. I can't wait to hear it.
Well, Jeff, what your audience is going to hear tonight is shattering. I would beg of you to please get pencils and paper and take notes, even though it'll be on Rense.com, and you can hear it. Take notes tonight so you've got it. The people of America have got to know the truth. The oil that's coming up in the Gulf out of that gusher, that is not the most dangerous part of all of this. The oil destroys the wildlife and the fish and the oysters and the shrimp and the prime white beaches of Pensacola, Florida, and the marshlands and the coral reefs. What comes out of that Gulf of Mexico oil gusher with the oil is causing the death of humans and unborn babies. Okay, let me start off first by giving a little background, Jeff, so that the average person out in the audience who may not be oil knowledgeable will understand what I'm trying to say this evening. All of this began back in 1970 when the Russians first drilled a super deep well Alcoa SG3. It went to a world record depth of 40,230 feet. Since then, Russia oil majors, including UCOS, have drilled 310 successful deep oil wells and put them into production.
Yeah, they hit every time, folks. Every time they hit oil, just to get that straight, at depth.
Yes. Yeah. And as a result of this, last year, Russia overtook Saudi Arabia as the world's biggest single oil producer and is now set to completely dominate global oil production and sales in the next century. Now, what did Russia find? When Russia got down to 40,230 feet, there are no rotted trees and plants and animals down there.
No dead dinosaurs.
First of all, they proved that it is not a fossil fuel. I'll tell you what they did find. They found abiotic. Please write this down. You're going to hear the word in the future. A-B-I-O-T-I-C. They found abiotic oil. Oil from chemical process that is taking place somewhere in the heart of the earth, and they don't know exactly how it does it. But as a result, it is filling up monstrous oil pools in super deep cavities, and that oil is seeping up into shallow fields such as Saudi Arabia, Nigeria, Mexico, and others. Peak oil just went out the window. Now, let me get into the Gulf of Mexico. I had to give that background because Russia was the first one to ever drill a super deep well. But Russia had sense enough to drill their Cola SG3 wells on land, not in the Gulf of Mexico.
Right.
Now to the Gulf of Mexico, Gusher. I contacted one of my elite, one of the Mr. X's in my book, The Energy and On Crisis, so I could try to find out the truth. And what I found out is startling. It even frightens me, and I'm sure it must disturb you too, Jeff. It appears that BP, British Petroleum, that is not an American oil company. This is a British oil company, was trying to do what Russia did and drill a super deep well. The only difference is BP was so stupid, and I don't hesitate using that word. BP was so stupid as to try and drill that super deep well to match what Russia was doing, and they were doing it off of a floating platform in the Gulf of Mexico that was controlled, its position, by sophisticated GPS equipment in water that was 5,000 feet deep. Now, 5,280 feet is 1 mile. But they were trying to drill off of a floating platform, 5,000-foot water, and they had drilled approximately 25 to 30,000 feet. This was confirmed by my sources, by the way, Jeff. They had drilled somewhere between 25 and 30,000 feet. This is on the edge of human technology. They hit something so catastrophic and unexpected that they could not contain it. They hit a strata of oil at such high pressure, and last time I was on your program, I told you I thought this was what they had done. This was confirmed by my BP source and also the Mr. X of my book, Energy and On Crisis. They hit a high pressure higher than Russia ever hit. But Russia never got anything like this in their super deep wells. But BP, it burst everything. I mean, it literally blew every safety valve. And not only that, but the part that is concerning me most is it also perforated the pipe that was in the ocean because of the extreme pressure. Right. And now we have fissures up to 5 miles, and one group, even the NOAA, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, is saying they're up to 20 miles away. I'll read you that article in a moment. Of oil coming up out of the ocean because that pipe was actually broken. They went past everything that human science could contain. Let me try to explain this by going back to my experiences at Prudhoe Bay. I was the chaplain to the elite of the world for 3 years' time at Prudhoe Bay, Alaska. And I watched many oil wells brought in. And the first thing that they would ever tell when an oil well was brought in was the flow rate. They would check to see how many